Some stories, they don't really make it into the official history books. They exist in the shadows. This is one of those stories. It's about how America's greatest triumph is tangled up with one of humanity's darkest chapters. So, let's open the declassified file on a secret program that really did change the world. Operation Paperclip.
Okay, picture it. It's July 20th, 1969. The whole world is just glued to their TVs, holding its breath as Neil Armstrong takes that one small step. This was the absolute pinnacle of American achievement. It was a moment of unity, of progress, of just pure scientific wonder. A victory for all of us.
Now, I want you to rewind 25 years. It's 1944. A siren is screaming through a London blackout. An engine cuts out high in the sky, followed by this terrifying silence. And then, just absolute devastation. This is the V-2 rocket, a weapon of pure terror, falling from the sky with zero warning.
So how on earth are these two moments connected? One is about ultimate creation, and the other is about pure destruction. How does a weapon of war become a vessel of exploration? Well, the answer really begins with one man.
A man who became a household name right here in America. A visionary who promised us the moon. And, incredibly, he delivered. His name was Wernher von Braun, and to a whole generation of Americans, this guy was a hero. He was this charismatic German scientist who designed the massive Saturn V rocket for NASA. He was the guy on Disney specials, charmingly explaining the future of space travel to millions of families. He was the celebrated genius who made good on Kennedy's promise to put a man on the moon. But that is only half this story. Not even, and you can see it laid out right here, this terrifying other side of the coin. Before he was NASA's director, he was Sturmbannführer von Braun, a major in Hitler's notorious SS. The paramilitary group responsible for the Reich's absolute worst atrocities. He wasn't just some scientist caught up in it all. He was the creator of the V-2 vengeance weapon. The American hero was a Nazi officer.
So how does a high-ranking Nazi become a celebrated American icon? Well, it didn't happen by accident. No, it happened by design, through a top-secret program born from the ashes of World War II. See, as World War II was ending, a brand new one was just beginning, the Cold War. The US and the Soviet Union, they were in this frantic race for Germany's most valuable asset, its scientific minds. And the American logic was cold, it was pragmatic. These scientists had created the world's first ballistic missile. And the thinking was, if we don't get them, the Soviets will. Now, officially, President Truman gave a direct order, no committed Nazis were to be recruited, period. But intelligence agencies, they quickly found a problem. The most brilliant scientists were committed Nazis. So their solution was deceptively simple. They take a scientist's incriminating file, scrub it of all the war crimes, write a brand new, sanitized biography, and then attach it to the original file with a paperclip. And just like that, Operation Paperclip was born, turning war criminals into valuable American assets.
And the scale of this was just staggering. We're not talking about a handful of guys here. Over 1,600 German specialists were secretly relocated to the United States, given new homes, new lives, and new, very high-paying government jobs.
But to really get the true moral cost of this deal, we have to look at where von Braun's rockets actually came from. We have to go underground, into a place of truly unimaginable horror.
So, to protect rocket production from Allied bombs, the Nazis moved the whole operation into this massive underground factory called Mittelwerk. And the rockets? They were assembled by slave laborers from the Dora Mittelbau concentration camp. These were people literally worked to death in horrific conditions, deep inside a mountain, never once seen the sun.
The V-2 rocket was a weapon of pure terror. It killed an estimated 9,000 civilians in Allied cities like London and Antwerp. A truly horrific number, but it's not the most horrific number in this story. Because more than double that number, an estimated 20,000 human beings died building the weapon. Let that sink in. More people died in the factory than were killed by the rockets it produced. This was an assembly line whose main product was death, both in its creation and in its use. And Wernher von Braun, he knew. He admitted to personally visiting the Mittelwerk tunnels. He saw the conditions of the slave laborers. And his perspective on the weapon they were building? When he was told his first V-2 successfully hit London, his now infamous response was, "The rocket worked perfectly, except for landing on the wrong planet." So this brings us right to the core of the issue, the bargain, the trade-off that sits at the very heart of America's Cold War strategy. And this really presents the ultimate moral dilemma.
On one side, people argue that Operation Paperclip was a necessary evil, right? It gave the US a critical edge over the Soviets. It secured our technological dominance, and it put a man on the moon. But on the other side, the United States government actively obstructed justice. It sheltered men who were implicated in crimes against humanity, basically trading moral authority for military advantage.
And there is just no escaping this final, chilling fact. The magnificent Saturn V, that symbol of humanity's greatest exploratory achievement, is the direct technological descendant of the V-2, a weapon built by slaves to terrorize civilians. We're talking the same minds, the same principles, the same lineage.
Which leaves us with one final, very uncomfortable question. To win the future, America chose to bury the past. So looking back at the moon landing, and at the world we live in today that was shaped by that Cold War victory, was it worth it?